What's happening, everybody? Boy Big Brandoh, and welcome to another episode of BSing with Brandoh. This one right here is going to be all about customers. And when I'm talking about customers, I'm saying the nightmare customers. Customers that we don't like working with, customers that are pain in our ass, customers just in general that are very difficult to work with. And this is how I deal with them. This is how I started to pinpoint which ones I wanted to work with and which ones I didn't want to work with. So I'm going to try to lay it out in this episode for you guys, because chances are some of you guys might be going through the same exact things that I went through, or might be going through these things right now currently. And maybe you're not kind of privy to how to find these types of customers or how to navigate around these customers. So hopefully my experiences will help you guys out. Now, like most of you guys already know, I've been doing this since the 90s. I used to screen print before I started getting into heat pressing, and I've always printed for other people. The content that you guys see me put out now is more around like running brands and stuff like that. But I did run my own just print shop, basically, where I was printing for other people. I still printed for myself, but I always kept good clientele on hand just to get the bills paid, just to make sure I was using all the equipment. It's just easy money that's always on the table. So I like to keep that type of work around at all times. So for myself, you guys will always hear me say there's certain customers that I will turn down the work. And for a lot of people getting into this business now that are either new to the business or maybe just getting started or been in business for a while, but it's just hard to come by customers. And when you hear me say that I turn down work or I deny certain jobs, people always kind of take a step back and be like, man, I thought the goal was to make money here, and you're talking about turning away work. Well, over the years of being in business, I've found out that, some paychecks aren't worth the headache. You know what I mean? And not all money is good money. When I say that, there's a lot of customers that come with extra baggage. And when I say extra baggage, I'm talking about like they come with an attitude, they're know-it-alls, they're very difficult to work with, their artwork is all messed up. They're constantly changing their mind when the designs or everything is submitted. Then they come back and they call or email and they're like, hey, I want to change this, or I want to change this quantity, or I want to do this. Those are nightmare customers to myself. I get it. Shit happens. There's people out there that kind of, like I said, if you're doing family reunion shirts, and let's say you're doing 100 t-shirts, and those 100 t-shirts turn into like 260 t-shirts, you might say, man, that's a good thing. Like, you're going to be printing more, you're going to be making more money. But to get to that point, there's a lot of headache that's involved. And a lot of times I hate dealing with that kind of stuff because it throws my production off. You know what I mean? So perfect example is years ago when I was still screen printing, I was doing a lot of those t-shirts. It was car club shirts, motorcycle club shirts, family reunion shirts. These are the types of bulk orders that I used to get in. And it's easy money, especially like the car club stuff. Like, it's a one color screen. We'll knock out maybe like 100 shirts or something like that, and pretty easy money. Once my name started to kind of get around in the car club space, and when I'm talking car clubs, I'm talking like lowrider car clubs. I was doing a lot of the car club t-shirts, member only t-shirts, not so much support shirts, but just, it had like their logo or their plaque on the left chest print, and then on the back, it had the big print. So fairly easy to do, especially when you're screen printing, and it was usually white ink, yellow ink on different color t-shirts. So these jobs used to come into me all the time. And the first few car clubs that I work with, they helped me get started in this space. Was I offered them a pretty cheap rate just to get their business, and then we built from there. Till this day, that car club still hits me up to do some logo work, not so much printing shirts. I think they have somebody in their club that prints their shirts. But like I said, I've been doing this since the 90s, and this is, 2024. So over the years, we've built a really good relationship, and my name is pretty good when it comes to word of mouth. And that's how I was getting a lot of my business. So what I ended up doing was I started selling, the service to the car club, saying, hey, I could print your shirts, I could print your hoodies, I could print your Dickie shirts, whatever you wanted. And the car clubs that I started working out with did a pretty good job at car shows and at picnics and on Crenshaw or Broadway, wherever they were cruising at. They would tell people, hey, we get our shirts done by this dude. This is his information, blah, blah, blah. So from there, I started to get a lot of requests. And at the time, those requests were cool. Like I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to be printing for this car club. I already had a handful of car clubs that I was printing for. And then I started printing for a few others. And some of the smaller clubs they weren't privy to how the t-shirt printing works, right? And like I said, I was screen printing at the time. So what I was doing was I was printing on Pro Club t-shirts. I was screen printing everything, and I would burn their screens, and then I would save that screen. So then that way I could print their shirts, especially if they're going to be a return customer. So some of the newer clubs, they weren't ordering hundreds of shirts. They were maybe ordering 24, 25 t-shirts because they didn't have a lot of members. And some of those guys just wanted a few extra shirts to have on hand that were going to stay crispy for car shows and picnics or whatever it is. So I had a minimum, right? And it was 24 was my minimum. And at the time, a lot of the screen print shops in my area, their minimums were 48 pieces. That was 4 dozen t-shirts. So I said, you know what, if I could get a little bit more work, I'll do smaller quantities. So I was doing 24 was my minimum. So the people that were referring me, they were ordering 100, 120 t-shirts because they had big clubs. And they would do it frequently. So they weren't telling the people about my service and saying, hey, they have a minimum of 24. They weren't doing that. That's not their job to do, for one, but they weren't giving them a heads up. So some of these smaller clubs would hit me up and be like, hey, can I get 12 shirts? And I'm like, no, I can't do 12. And it was a back and forth. And then I'd be like, my minimum's 24. And like, all right, we'll do 24. Here's our logo. These are the t-shirts, that the colors that we want, and this and that. After I print those, when customers are out in the wild, they'll start talking about, pricing, right? And, some of these bigger car clubs, they're doing 120 t-shirts. So their per print cost is a lot cheaper than 24 pieces, right? And that's how my pricing was structured before, was like from 24 to 48 was a certain price. And then from 48 on was a different price. And the guys were like, hey, I heard you're only charging them this much. Is it because of this car club, or is it because they're established car club and you're giving them a better discount? And I'm like, no, it just depends on how many you're ordering versus how many, I'm actually printing. And they didn't get the price break thing. They didn't understand, like, all right, if we ordered more than 48, we want that price. And what they were trying to do was saying, all right, we'll come and do 24 with you here, and then we'll do another 24 2 months later, and then we'll do another 24 at this time. Hey, we reached that 48 minimum, so can we, work out a deal? And I was like, nah, it's per job that comes in, right? I'm trying to explain that to them, but since they're not from the print world, like they don't understand the process, a lot of what I was saying was foreign language to them. They're just like, you're not even trying to hook us up. All of that back and forth time for me was a pain in the ass, because I'm over here trying to argue on my pricing and my process and what my time is worth. And these guys are arguing because they only have a small car club and they want the bulk pricing, but they're not ordering the bulk size of the job. And they didn't understand that. So for myself, the back and forth that we're doing and the exchange was taking up way more time, like my time that I could actually be printing shirts, because I'm trying to educate them on the process, burning screens, why I keep the screens, why there's a setup fee and stuff like that. And it's taken away time from me actually printing shirts and, doing the jobs for these other car clubs that have already been getting their shirts printed, so they know the process, they know how things work. I've even had some car clubs bring their screen to me and say, hey, you know what, we already have our own screens. Can, you just knock these out for us? And I'm like, yeah, cool. Well, anyways, the smaller car club, after, time goes on and we're working and we're doing a lot of different stuff and they understand the pricing now, they start saying, all right, you know what, we're going to bring you, we need 24 member shirts, but then we also need, 24 of these, not support shirts, but it was like they were hosting like a picnic, and they wanted shirts for like the kids and that weren't actual members and their wives. And other people that kind of just like hung around the club but wasn't part of the club. I wouldn't call it a support shirt, but it wasn't the members only shirt. So it's me coaching them again. They think they're meeting the 48 minimum, but it's 48 of the same exact design. You know, it's not switching up the screens. It's all over again talking about, hey, this is what needs to be done. I need to get these screens. I need to burn them. I'm going to store them for you guys, but this is a one-time fee that you have to pay. And all of that back and forth for 48 t-shirts was not worth it for me. And I still didn't understand. I was just like, oh, this is just a small club, or it's a one-time thing with this club. Everybody else gets it. What I didn't understand is not a lot of people are privy to the actual printing process on what I'm doing, right? Screen printing, whether it's heat pressing, whether it's sublimation, whatever your print method is. Not a lot of people care about how the sausage is made, and not a lot of people need to know. And I used to think I had to walk every single customer through that. And as time went on, I noticed that most people just care about the end result. They care about pricing, and they care about the actual t-shirt, what it's going to look like in the end. And they want to make sure it's done on time. From those small interactions with those smaller clubs, I felt I needed to do that with every single customer. So moving forward was anytime I got a print job in, I'm like, all right, I'm going to burn these screens. I'm going to do this. This is the process. Here's the screen. This is the mesh count. This is what I'm doing. And I'm telling them a lot of the detail that goes into me printing that they don't need to know about. And I'm wasting time doing that. And I'm thinking that it's helping the sale. And I'm thinking that that's what every customer needs, is their handheld, so I don't run into those same issues. It took me a very long time to get out of that mind state of I need to explain the process to every single customer, and I just need to let my work speak for itself. It took me years to get to that point, and I'm talking years, like 10, 15 years to get to that point. So I was always telling the customer, all right, this is why pricing is like this. This is why the price break is here, because it takes me this long to do this, and it takes me this long to do this. And that's why if I'm in the, groove of printing anything over 48 pieces, it's just kind of easier for me to knock those jobs out, where a small job that's only 24 pieces is going to take me the same amount of time to set the press up, burn the screens, get everything going, start printing, and then the cleanup is exactly the same. So it doesn't matter if I'm doing 24 pieces or I'm doing 124 pieces, that setup time and breakdown time is exactly the same. So the printing process of me actually pushing ink through the screen with the squeegee onto the t-shirt is what you're paying for. And when I'm going through that, there's so many people that I'm losing because they're like, yeah, I don't care about all this. I just want my t-shirts done. And I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting their time by trying to explain what the hell I'm doing, right? And to me, time is money. Going back and forth with the customer, that's kind of like a consultation part of the job, right? It's laying everything out at the very beginning. What I was doing was I was taking them through the process, and I'm consulting with them through the process. What I didn't know is everything should have been said right from the jump. I learned that later on, but like I said, I didn't have guidance really when it came to starting my business. I didn't know the business side. I had guidance when it came to learning how to print t-shirts, but I had no guidance on the business side of things. So I didn't understand, like, all right, we need to agree on something before we get this thing done because we're going to have issues along the way. So my thing was, all right, I'm going to basically hold this person's hand through the whole process to make sure I'm doing things right and I'm doing it up to their standards and I'm doing things the way they want them to be done so I don't have any issues. That was my thought process. That's what my brain was going to, was like, all right, in order to minimize, the complaints and minimize, the interaction with the customer, I just talk to the customer throughout the way. I did that totally wrong. It's cool to give status updates and it's cool to, talk the customer through, but you can't be talking about quantities and colors and stuff like that when you're in the middle of printing, because basically you need to agree on something at the very beginning to get it done. And then that way There's no like, oh, you know what? I remember on Wednesday I had told you that I needed 6 more shirts. I'm like, oh, I missed that message. No, none of that. You need to be able to lock everything down at the very beginning and make sure the customer signs off on, yeah, this is what we're agreeing on before you take on the job and before you get started on the job. Now, for me, I didn't understand that those smaller car clubs were going to be a pain in the ass. I didn't know that. I just thought, hey, they don't know the printing process, so let me help them out. And maybe I was doing it out of the kindness of my own heart, or maybe I was doing it thinking these guys would appreciate that. But what ended up happening was they just started to kind of run over me. Not really run over me, but they just started making a bunch of different requests because now they had access to me, right? So now it's like, we want 24 t-shirts, but then we need these 24. Remember these t-shirts that you did for us 6 months ago? Can you pull those screens back up? And we want to print those up. We want 6 of those. And it was a pain in the ass to do such a low quantity run that I started to feel buried and not making the amount of money that I should have been making because I was catering to them, right? I was like, you know what? The customer's right. The customer knows what they want. I need to deliver on what they want. And I was so in my head that they were going to go around and talk bad or ill about me and my services because I'm new to this space and I'm working with a few clubs, but I want to print for every club. In my head, that's what I wanted to do. And I'm treating every customer, the customers ordering big jobs and the customers ordering small jobs, kind of the same, but I'm noticing that I'm giving way more attention to the smaller clubs. And that's because the smaller clubs don't understand the process, and the smaller clubs have access to me because, we're exchanging, phone calls here and there, and we're exchanging emails here and there, and things are kind of just, I'm spending so much time for so little money. And I didn't understand that. I'm like, all right, the week went by and I feel like I've been printing in my garage, but I'm only turning over, 36 t-shirts. And why am I only making this much? But I spent this whole week with this customer working with them. And I feel like I've been, breaking my back for them, but I'm only making this much. And what it was there was so much administrative stuff that I was doing for them, the back and forth, cleaning up their artwork. They'd send me a hand drawing and be like, yeah, this is what we want. And I'm like, man, I got to clean up this artwork. So then that way I could start burning the screens. And they didn't care about all that. It was just, I was getting the job done for them. And whatever demand they had, I was just like, yeah, cool, I'll do it for you. Because I was afraid to lose the work and I was afraid of them talking bad about me, that I just kept doing it. And it took me a while to understand that I'm spending so much time talking to these guys and doing all this stuff for these very, very small orders that I'm not making any money on this. Like, I'm actually losing money now because I'm wasting my time talking to these people and coaching these people and doing these small add-ons to their job so they could make the minimum of 48 and understand how that works. And they're just, somebody's telling them, hey, you're getting shirts done? Yeah, throw 6 in for me or throw 5 in for me. And they're hitting me up like, hey, add 5 more to this order. Hey, add 6 more to that order. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I had access to the t-shirts and I'm doing it. And at the time, it didn't feel like a big deal. But when I started to crunch the numbers is when I noticed, hey, I'm wasting so much time and not making a lot of money doing this and operating this way that I had to change something up. It took me a little while to figure out, like, all right, I need to set my price. I need to set my quantities and where the price breaks are. And when I'm talking to the customers, I need them to know that what we agree on is what I'm printing. There's no, hey, add this many or add this many. And if I do take that on, there's going to come with a premium. Like, I'm going to have to charge you extra because I'm going to have to go pick up the shirts in downtown LA, and I'm going to have to make arrangements around what the job is, right? And that's when I started to adjust my pricing because I noticed how much time I was taking to print shirts, and I knew how much time it was going to take me to burn the screens, print the negatives out. I knew how much time it was going to take for me to actually knock that job out, how much ink was going to be used, all of that stuff. And then I had to also make sure that the other car clubs that I was working with, I wasn't dropping the ball on their jobs because, like I said, they were cool. They were the star customer in my head. Was like, this is how many shirts we need. These are the designs. These are the locations. We need them by this day. Here's half the money up front. And it works so easy that way. And I was like, man, how come this other car club can't do it that way? And it was because the bigger car club, they knew the process. The printer that they worked with before coached them on what needed to be done and how to get stuff done. The smaller car clubs that's never gotten shirts done before, they had no idea. And I had to basically teach them the process and get them to understand. But what I didn't do was I didn't set the boundaries early. I was just talking to them, coaching them, getting them to actually want to use my service, that I made it so easy for them to just say, all right, I need this shirt, or I need this many, or we need to get this done on this day. And I was doing it, whether it was a short turnaround, whether it was, adding a few extra shirts the day of, all of that stuff. And I was making it happen, and they got used to that, and they got comfortable with that. And they thought that that was the process because I didn't tell them otherwise. You know what I mean? So now they're going to car shows and to picnics, and they're talking to other car clubs, and they're like, yeah, you know what? This guy does our stuff and he's cool. He does this. And sometimes we have extra shirts and he knocks them out for us. Now that's my reputation out there as the guy that's getting stuff done, and you can give me last minute orders and you could do this. And it became a nightmare, man. It was, now there's so many other car clubs that were hitting me up, and some motorcycle clubs that were hitting me up, and they're like, hey, can you print this for us? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm telling them, all right, this is the minimum, 24 is the minimum, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, well, you did this car club stuff and they said that they only, had 20 shirts printed or whatever it is. And I was just like, look, man, like, this is the minimum. This is the price break. If you did 24, if you did 48, this is how it works out. And I started to lose customers that way. And when I'm saying lose customers, it wasn't like, oh man, your prices are too high, or it just came off like I didn't know what I was doing. I looked all unorganized because I'm doing certain things for this club, certain things for this other club, and this other club is operating perfectly fine. And it becomes an issue where people hear something, whether it's pricing or services, and they say, hey, this is how much they charge me. People come to you and say, hey, I want that same deal. Either you're giving them a deal or you're not. You need to make sure that if your pricing is out in the public, that pricing is across the board. And it always comes down to how you talk to your customers, how you set them up, how things are going with your customers. So then that way there's going to be no issues whatsoever when it comes to, hey, I need to add these. And if I say there's a premium on top of that, they should know, oh shit, you know what? So-and-so told me that, they ordered 48, but then they wanted to add an extra 5 on there and you had to charge them X amount. So I'm privy to that. The way that you handle these situations is going to be the way that your business is determined out in public, if that makes any sense. Like, the public is going to talk about your business. If this is how you're getting the work, if this is how your name is being spread throughout wherever to get more work, this is the customer interaction between you and the customer is what the customer is going to talk about. It's like if a plumber came to your house and they said, hey, we'll come out and unclog your toilet for $80. They're going to come out, do the work. The way you and that plumber communicate and agree on a price or whatever it is what you're going to tell your friends and family that's going to be looking for a plumber. And you're going to be like, hey, you know what? I have a guy that came out and unclogged my toilet for $80. This is, here's his name and number. The price that you worked out with the plumber is what you're going to tell your friends and family, because they're going to be like, well, how much did he charge? I'm like, oh, he charged me $80 to unclog my toilet. And this is what it was. Same goes for you and your print business. You know what I mean? It's like when people are talking about your business, pricing is going to come up, turnaround time is going to come up, quality of your work is going to come up, and how easy it was to work with you. Your customer service is going to come up. These are the things that people are going to talk about. When you look at Yelp reviews, that's what it is your customer service, the pricing, all of that stuff is graded. So when you're operating as a business and you're selling a service like printing t-shirts, having your pricing right, knowing exactly what you're doing, knowing how long it's going to take you to do something. So if somebody says, hey, I need 48 t-shirts done, but I need them by this day, you can say, nah, it's going to take me longer, because you need to know how long it's going to take you to get the blank t-shirts, how long it's going to take you to actually print the stuff. You want to give yourself a little bit of padding and a buffer time just in case things go wrong. All of that stuff has to be built in. So then that way, your customers will talk about your services to the next person and be like, oh man, you know, he usually turns stuff around in a week or two for me, or he only charges me this much for 48 t-shirts, or he charges me this much for 24 t-shirts. You need your customers to talk about your services in order for the business to grow, but you want to make sure that you're treating every single customer the same exact way, same exact pricing, same exact services, same everything. So that way across the board, it sounds right. You don't want one guy saying, oh man, I got my t-shirts printed from this guy. He only charged me $2 a shirt. And then you charge somebody else $6 a shirt. Now, if those two people meet, maybe they won't ever in life, but if they are, or maybe they have a mutual friend, one person saying one number, the other person saying the other number, you're going to look crazy. So for me, I had to learn all that because of having these difficult customers. And I didn't know that there were difficult customers at the time. I just was eager to get the job done, and I wanted to actually, you know, build my portfolio up, and I wanted more people to start using my service. So I was like trying to do everything that I could to keep everybody happy. And that killed me. It was the worst thing for my business to do that, because I was spreading myself thin for little amounts of money. And I'm talking about, like, I'm doing all this work for a measly 30 t-shirts or 24 t-shirts. And that might sound crazy to some of you guys, but you got to remember, if I'm used to doing bigger orders, I'm spending so much time doing these smaller orders where it's not worth my time and it's not worth the money I'm getting out of this thing. So that's when I started to understand what my value was. I started to understand how long things took me to actually do. And then I could focus all that around my pricing. So my pricing got adjusted. And when my pricing got adjusted, that's when those customers, they were like, hey man, you used to charge me this much. Why are you charging me this much? I have no ill intention, or I have no reason not to say, hey, look, this is what my time is worth. This is what things cost. If you don't want to work with me, you can go to another print shop. It's cool. But this is what you get out of working with me. Like, this is the customer service stuff. This is what I'm guaranteeing you. Turnaround time is going to be on time. Like my deadlines, I've never missed a deadline. I'm going to give you quality prints. I'm going to walk you through the process by telling you, hey, this is what, you know, it's going to cost, and this is how long it's going to take me. And this is, you know, if you wanted to know what inks I use, I'll tell you what inks I use. All of that stuff is things that I felt was important, that was going to make my pricing competitive with the other people, but I'm also not selling myself short. And that's what a lot of people were not familiar with. They were just like, man, this other shop charges me this much. Yeah, but that other shop drops deadlines. They push out smaller orders because they're taking care of bigger orders. I treat all my customers the same. These customers right here, or this shop over here charges you this much for screens. I charge you for this much for screens. My setup fee is this much because my shop's a lot smaller. Their shop's a lot bigger. They have more overhead than me. I don't. So all of that builds into my pricing, right? And when the first time I tell somebody my pricing and they're like, oh man, you can't do it for this much, or, you know, I heard you used to charge this. I'm like, hey man, my prices went up. This is what I charge now. If they don't want to work with me, I'm fine with them walking away. I'm fine with not printing for them because I know what my time is worth. And for a lot of people that are starting out, that's their biggest hang up, is somebody will set their price and say, you know what, I'll do that t-shirt for $30. Say it's a custom shirt and they're doing a one-off shirt and they charge $30. And then the customer's like, oh man, you can't do it for 20, man. Like the dude in the mall does it for 20. In most people's head, they have that customer there and they don't want to lose the job. So like, yeah, you know what, I'll do it for 20 this time. Now that you did that, your price with them is going to be $20 forever. That's if they come back and work with you. For me, if somebody said that and didn't agree with my price, and I'm like, hey man, go somewhere else. Sometimes I'll even recommend them to other places because, yeah, I want them to get their shirts done. And I'm not like, it's not a competition for me. If somebody else I know can do it for cheaper, then I'll send them to the cheaper person because I understand what my time is worth. I understand what I value my time at, and I'm not going to bend for nobody. You know what I mean? But it took me years to figure that part out. It took me fucking years to understand that concept because I was like most people where I didn't want to turn away work. And I was like, oh, you know what? What's $5? You know, I'll charge you, instead of 25, I'll charge you 20 just to keep the work in-house and just to, I felt like I was doing myself a service by having more work. But what ended up happening was I was just taking on way more headaches than I really needed to. And I was just selling myself short, man. And over the years is when I started to really turn away customers. If somebody didn't understand the print process, or if somebody needed a lot more coaching at our initial consultation, like when I'm talking to the customer, like what they want printed, if they're all over the place and they don't know, I turn them away. Or if the job doesn't seem like it's going to be beneficial for me, like the size of job sometimes, if somebody comes to me and is like, hey man, I need 16 shirts and I need the print to be on the sleeve, I need it to be on the left chest, I need a big back print, I want, you know, the location of printing, the amount of actual printing that's going to happen, the quantity of shirts, all of that, if it doesn't sit right with me and it doesn't sound appealing to me where I'm going to be, you know, making a decent amount of money on that job, I turn it away and I say, oh, you know what? This job's not for me. I'm not going to be able to knock that out for you. And they'll say, why? And then I'll tell them, hey, you know what? You're asking for a lot of stuff. It's like you're trying to put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. I'm not going to be able to bring that to life for you. Then they'll say, well, what do you recommend? And that's when I know that either my services were spoken about highly with somebody else, where they said, hey, this guy's cool. And you know, he did all my shirts and they like my quality of work, where they're willing to hear what I'm willing to do for them. That's when I know, all right, you know, they might be a good customer for me. If they hear, oh, I don't want to take that on because it's going to take this much work and it's not going to be worth it for me, and they say, all right, I'm going to go somewhere else, that customer is not for me. That customer is not meant to have my services or pay for my services, and I'm fine with that. I'm so cool with that, that's where I'll recommend them. I'm like, hey, you know what? This shop over here, I think they charge this much, or there's this shop local to you. You should go check them out. Maybe they could get it done for you. I'll help them find another printer. I have no problems with that. For me, it has to make sense for me. And I'm not saying this because I have, you know, millions of customers. No. But over the years, I have built up solid clientele that I can actually say, you know what, I'm going to turn down that job because it's not worth my time. Or I'm going to turn down this job because I feel it's going to be a pain in the ass working with this person because their artwork looks like this. It sounds like they don't know what they want. And a lot of times they don't know the printing process. And if I have to hold somebody's hand now, the more time I'm wasting with that customer and I'm not actually printing shirts for another customer, I'm losing money. You know what I mean? And that's why I know what my time is valued at. I know what my labor's valued at or valued at. I know how much or how long it takes me to print something. I know how much I need to make an hour to make it beneficial for myself. And how do you know all that? I know what my time is worth because I'll say, all right, I could be making this much money doing this. I need to make that same amount of money printing these shirts, because if I'm not going to make that same amount, then I'm not going to take on that job. It's simple as that. Think about your day job. Your job bases your hourly rate on your experience, right? So your day job is saying, hey, you know what? I feel that your experience and your skill set is worth $20 an hour. So they're paying you $20 an hour for your service, whatever it is you do. I don't know what your day job is, but let's say your day job is you work in a warehouse and you drive a forklift, right? You're worth $20 an hour to them. You have to think, if I'm making less than $20 an hour printing shirts, right? Let's say you're printing, I don't know, let's say you're doing 50 shirts and it's going to take you 2 hours to do. If you value your time should be valued at what you can be doing elsewhere of making money. What's your other options? If your other option is to drive a forklift for $20 an hour, don't you think that t-shirt printing process should be valued at something higher than $20 an hour. Because if it's lower than $20 an hour, you're basically losing money because you could be doing something else and make more money doing that. You know what I mean? That's how I figure out my pricing. That's how I figure out what I can be doing somewhere else to make more money instead of selling myself short. A lot of people don't understand that concept because like, well, I own my own business and I'll set the prices at whatever because I'm doing something that I love. Yeah, that's cool, but love doesn't pay the bills. You got to remember, a lot of times we get caught up in the passion of things. Oh man, I love what I do now. I'm my own boss. I'm making t-shirts. I love art. I'm doing everything that I love. Money doesn't mean anything. You cannot say that to the electricity company or the gas company. You can't say that to Toyota when your car notes due. You can't say, man, I'll pay you in passion. I'm going to pay you in love. You can't say that. You have to be real with yourself. And that's what a lot of people forget is they get caught up in, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss. I don't want to have to answer to the man no more. You have to really, really, really check your ego and understand what the hell you're doing and how you're going to make money. And a lot of people, they get caught up in these memes and these viral videos of people saying, yeah, man, passion is everything, passion over money, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine, man. If you want to operate that way, cool. But you still need money to pay your bills. If you have a day job and that's paying your bills, man, live out the passion. Do whatever you want as long as your bills are paid. But what I'm talking about is actually understanding what your time is worth to you. What are you sacrificing? What's your time with your kids worth? Because if you're not hanging out with your kids, you're going to be printing t-shirts. So those t-shirts better be worth that time that you're missing with your kids. Think about that for your day job. When you have a day job and you're getting paid $20 an hour, that means every single hour you're getting paid $20 is you not being around your kids, right? So you have to see, what am I sacrificing here? What am I giving up? Time with my family, time that I could be working my day job making this much, or I could be making overtime doing this. So are the t-shirts going to be worth it for you? And then on top of that, it's your experience within the t-shirts. You can't just come out the gate, you buy a heat press tomorrow and you're like, you know what? This guy charges $30 a t-shirt. I'm charging $30 a t-shirt, because now you're valuing your time based on that person's experience. That person's been in the game for 10, 15 years. He knows how long it takes him to print a shirt. He knows the ins and outs. He knows all of everything that he does. For myself, when people ask me, what do you charge for this? And I say, I charge them what my time is worth. And they're like, well, what dollar amount is that? I can't tell you what I value my time at, because I have experience from the 90s of being in this t-shirt space. I know how my transfers hold up. I know how my t-shirts hold up. I do the wash test. You guys seen me do the wash test. These things that I do are for my business, and that way I could feel confident in what I give to the customer. I know how long it takes me to do 100 shirts. I know how long it takes me to do 500 shirts. I also know how long it takes me to do one single shirt. All of that data is what I write down in my own notebook to say, all right, this is how fast I'm at doing this. So when somebody comes to me and says, hey man, I need 60 t-shirts done, I'm like, all right, I can knock out 60 shirts in an hour. It's going to take me this long to order the transfers and order the t-shirts. It's going to take me this long to actually press the stuff and box it up. I know what my rate is. So then that way I could break it down to numbers and be like, it's going to take me a total of 3 hours to do everything here. I need to make sure I'm getting this much money out of this job, because if I'm not, I know I could be spending my 3 hours doing this over here. I've shown you guys on TikTok me knocking out t-shirts, like doing 100 t-shirts in less than an hour, front and back prints. That's because I know how long it's going to take me to do something, because I've done it. I've timed myself. I'm like, all right, cool. I know I can knock this out using these transfers, using these t-shirts, using this heat press. I know I can knock out 100 t-shirts front and back print in less than an hour. So this is what I'm going to charge the customer. Knowing what your time is worth only matters to you. I don't know what your sacrifices are. I don't know what you're giving up to print these t-shirts. I don't know what you make at your day job. This is stuff that you need to figure out on your own. So that way you can actually start, like, building up your pricing is based on your own experience, what your labor is worth to you. What do you value your time at? That's the part that a lot of people don't understand. And I always say, use your day job. What does your day job value your time at? That'll tell you right there what your time is worth. If somebody says you're only worth $16 an hour, then that's what your employer is valuing your time at. Do you feel you're worth more than $16 an hour? What do you bring to the table that's worth more than $16 an hour? This is stuff that you have to figure out for yourself. I can't do it. Somebody else can't do it. Your mom can't do it. You need to evaluate your own life to understand what your time is worth. What is it worth to you? Some people don't have kids. Some people aren't married. Some people don't even have day jobs. All of these factors come into play. What can you be doing with your time if you weren't printing t-shirts? And then on top of that, there's people that are like, oh, you know what do you charge for one t-shirt? And let's say I say, oh man, I'll knock that shirt out for $20. So somebody's going to value their time at $20. But I know that that t-shirt's only going to take me maybe 10 minutes to do. It might take you 2 hours to do, because maybe you don't know your software for your cutting, like your vinyl cutting software. Maybe you don't know how to edit the text or edit the design like I do. Maybe your cutter's a lot slower than mine. Maybe you don't know how to line your shirts fast. I don't know. Maybe you don't know how to weed up fast. So something that's going to take me 10 minutes might take you 2 hours, and we both charge $20 for that. So you basically got charged $10 an hour, and I got charged $20 for 10 minutes of my time. That's how you have to break the shit down. You can't base it off of somebody else, and somebody can't give you some fucking pricing calculator and say this is what you should be charging for shirts, because those people creating those calculators are basing that off of their own self, what their time is worth. What is your time worth? You know what I mean? So you have to understand that part before you even like start shopping around for work and stuff like that. Understand how long something takes. Like if you're going to print a shirt for yourself, time yourself. Be like, oh shit, I need to cut this out on vinyl. This is how long it takes me to load the vinyl up. This is how long my cutter takes to do a design like this. This is how long it takes me to weed it up. This is how long it takes me to align the shirt, align the transfer, press it down, start to finish. See what something like how long the shit takes you. And then you'll be able to understand, all right, if somebody comes to me and says they need 6 t-shirts done, here's the time it takes me to do this. This is what it takes. This is what I'm going to need to make in order for this to be beneficial for me. In order for me to make some money on this thing and for me to live a comfortable life, this is what needs to be done. Don't base your pricing off of somebody else or your competition, or because somebody says, hey, you should be charging $20 a t-shirt. If it takes you way longer to make that t-shirt, do not charge $20. If it takes you $40, like if your time is valued at that, like let's say you value your time at $20 an hour and it's going to take you 2 hours to make that shirt, you tell the customer it's going to cost $40. And if they say, no, it's too expensive, then hey, you'd rather work for less just to keep the job in, or would you rather make the money that you deserve? That's what it comes down to. And there's a lot of people out there that are going to disagree with this, and that's fine. You do not have to do what I say. You don't have to operate like me. You don't have to think like me. But understand that when you're selling yourself short, that's going to be your price with that customer forever. I'm a victim of that. Like I was telling you, like if I told somebody, yeah, I'll do this and I'll, do last minute jobs and blah, blah, blah for people, that's their opinion on me, and that's how me and that person work, and that'll be the price, and that'll be the way we work together forever until you change things. You don't want that to happen. I'm trying to help people not create that mistake and fall into that habit, because you end up wasting money and wasting time, and it's not worth it in the long run. It might feel like it's worth it when you're first starting out, because like, yeah, I'm getting all this work in. But then when you really sit back and say, all right, I spent this much time to make $20 off this t-shirt. Was that really worth it? It took me 4 hours to do this and looking for the fonts. And it took me, all this time to actually create the design, and this back and forth between me and the customer till they agreed on the design. And then you're like, oh man, I charged this person $20 and it took me 4 hours start to finish to work with this customer, from talking to them to delivering the shirt. I spent 4 hours working with them, so I basically made $5 an hour. Now you're selling yourself short. When you break the numbers down like that, the shit is crazy. And when I say crazy, I'm talking about like, it's not worth it. You might as well just work your day job for $20 an hour instead of charging somebody $5 an hour to do a t-shirt. That to me is crazy talk, man. And if we're getting into this business to make money, you're going about it all wrong. If that's your mentality right now, where you're like, oh man, like I'm going to charge this much. The customer says that's too much. And then you're going to lower your price for the customer and bend for the customer. But you end up spending so much time doing that work for the customer that it doesn't make sense. You're not making any money. You're not getting rich off of doing that. And you're breaking your back for pennies, and it's not worth it, man. So I know pricing is a big thing with a lot of people, and that's a make or break thing when it comes to dealing with customers. A lot of times it comes down to pricing because people are trying to get their t-shirts done for the cheapest. You have to rely on your customer service. You have to rely on your experience. You have to rely on what you're providing for that actual customer. There's so many clients that I have, and I'm talking big corporate clients, my accounts that I have. Some customers, they order tons of shirts, and it's not because I'm the best printer out here. It's because they don't have to think about anything else when they send me a job. They say, I need this many shirts done. This is the color of design I want. This is the color of t-shirt I want. Here's the size list, and boom, that's it. They know that they're going to get that shirt order on time, if not earlier, when they come with me. And it's not because I'm busting my ass doing this stuff. It's because over the years, they've learned that they don't have to think twice when they send me a job. My customer service is what sells my print service. That's it. We all print shirts the same, whether we're using a heat press, whether we're screen printing. And a lot of people think, oh man, my pricing has to be a little bit better than this person to land this job. No, customer service, man. I try to take the guesswork out for everybody I work with, man. When it comes to me selling my service, I am selling them on a headacheless, I don't even know if that's the right word. Headacheless? That ain't even a fucking word, but they're not going to have any headaches working with me. Like, they're not going to have to think twice about anything that I'm doing. All they have to do is pay me, tell me when they need it, and give me the details of the job, and it's done. That's it. And that's the part of the business that majority of my clients pay me for. And that's it. It's not because I print fast. It's not because I'm better than other people. It's not because my turnaround time is better than other people. It's because I make the job painless for them. Most of the time, these people don't even give a shit about the t-shirts. They're getting tasked with somebody saying, hey, we should get shirts made. Like, hey, I got a guy for that. This is what we need. And they're off to doing a different task. Once they send it to me, I'm knocking it out for them. I'm delivering it to them. We're good to go. So this is where a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I'm talking about like the up and comers or the startup businesses or the people like that, that are stuck on pricing, stuck on customers, stuck on trying to get work in. So any customer that comes around, they'll do anything for that customer just to have the work in. I get that mentality, but you have to break out of that mentality as soon as possible, because the moment you get stuck into, I'll do whatever I can for the customer just to get their business, you become their slave. And I'm not saying like, like a slave, but I am saying like you're working for them, right? If you got into this business to be your own boss, now you're working for somebody else instead of working with them. When I provide a service to somebody, it's me working with them. It's not me working for them. It sounds weird and it probably doesn't make sense to most, but for myself, I feel like we're working together. I don't feel like I'm working for them. I don't report to them. I don't bend to them. All I'm doing is working with them. You want this done? I'm going to get it done for you. You're going to pay me for my services and we're going to go on our happy way. That's how shit works. So when I say like I turn down work and I can pinpoint a headache customer, the headache customer is somebody that doesn't know the printing process. The headache customer is somebody that doesn't know what they want. And the headache customer to me is somebody that is so undecided that when we have this initial conversation, if they can't tell me exactly what they want, then I usually turn them away. And the reason I turn them away is because I don't want to have to be there to go through the thinking process with them. I want them to do the thinking on their own, and I want them to come to me with a print ready file, meaning your artwork is ready to be printed that day. I want you to come with your size listing and the quantity of shirts and what your deadline is. And that's it. We talk about pricing after that. We talk about whatever else you want to talk about after that. But if you can't supply me with that stuff, then I'm on to the next. And I'm like, you know what? I can't take this job on. I could refer you to this person, or I could refer you over here, but this job isn't for me. And saying no has been the freedom that I've needed in the early 2000s, because in the early 2000s, I was doing everything and anything that I could. And I'll tell you this, those customers that I was bending backwards for, that I was hand holding, I don't print for them. Like those relationships didn't last. But the people that I've been printing for the last 20 years, 25 years, almost 30 years is the people that understood my services. They understood what I was delivering. They understood my process, and they understood that they were going to get exactly what they wanted when they worked with me. And that's the reason why I have the clients that I have today, is because a lot of them, I've never promoted my print business. I've never, ever in life promoted my print business and told people, hey, you should come in and let me print your shirts for you or anything like that. My business has solely operated off of word of mouth. And I've never even made a business card for my print business that I have till this day, because I never needed to. It was always by word of mouth. Hey, I heard you did shirts for this, or I got your number from this person. I want to know if you can do my shirts, or can you do my hats, or do this. Because the customers talk highly of me because of what I do for them. And like I said, it's a headacheless process when you work with me. And like I said, that ain't even a real word, man, but I can't tell you how many times in the print world that I've worked with people that are stressed out by the time they get to me, because somebody's telling them they need this, and I'm like, all right, I need the artwork to look like this, especially when I was screen printing. I'm like, hey, man, I need a vector file of this. This is what I need. And they're like, what the hell's a vector file? And then they start to freak out, and then they start to stress out. And all of that stress and all of that, just like I said, headache is on my doorstep the day they bring the job in, because they have so many other people on their backs. Like, we need this done. We need this. Go get this done. Go get this. And then they come to me and they're like, I need it's just word vomit at that point. I need these shirts done and blah, blah, blah. This is what people are telling me. And when people come to me, it's basically that easy. It's like, they already know this is my pricing. This is what needs to be done. You tell me when you need them. I'll knock it out for you. And I keep my client list very, very small. I turn away work all the time, only because I know that if I take on way too much work than I can actually handle, then I won't be treating every customer with the same amount of energy, and I wouldn't give them the same service, because now I'm spreading myself too thin. I know my limits. I know how much I could take in, and I know when I'm floating, and I know when I'm drowning. And those are two different things in this business, because it's very, very easy to start drowning in work when things are going good. You're like, oh man, I got all this work coming in. And then once it starts to pile on and you start to drown, it's very hard to get out of that thing, man. And that's when mistakes happen. And then that's when, customers are getting mad, because now you're dropping deadlines. I pride myself on making every deadline, so I know how much work to take in, what size jobs I could take in, especially with the embroidery machine, man. That's like a big thing for me, is when I got this embroidery machine, and there's so many people that hit me up now and they're like, hey man, can you do my hats for me and blah, blah, blah. I turn away people all the time. And there's people that are in my DMs all the time saying if I could do their embroidery. And I'm like, man, I can't, because one, the machine's tied up. Two, I already have so much work in, I can't take on any more work. And it's not because I feel like I'm better than anybody. It's just, I know what my mental capacity is on taking stuff in. And I still want to be sane at the end of the day. I don't want to be a slave to my shop where I'm in here all day long for 10, 12 hours a day. I got a family I want to hang out with. I'm in a position where I can take in the work that I want to, and I could turn away the work that I want to based on my own schedule. And that's what owning your business is all about. That's what we're doing this for, is for freedom, financial freedom, and freedom for your time. You don't want to have to be a slave to somebody else. You don't want to have to work for somebody else. You don't want to have to be on somebody else's schedule. You own your own business to make your own schedule. I got homies that are barbers, and I got homies that own waxing places. I got a homie that does dog walking. They own their own businesses, right? What they do is they schedule everything: the dog walking, the barber, the body waxer. They schedule all of their appointments around their own life. What makes sense to them? Oh, I could fit you in at this time, or I could fit you in at this time. They don't let the customer say, I want to come in at this time. No, if it doesn't work with that time of their life, they don't do it. And that's what owning your business is all about, is the freedom to be able to do that kind of stuff. There's so many people out there that are going to be like, nah, I'll take in a job at midnight. I don't care, blah, blah, blah. That's cool if you want to do that. For myself, that's not why I started my own businesses. I wanted to start my own businesses so I could have the time to hang out with my family. I wanted to start my own business so that way I could do whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't want to have to be a slave to my own business. I want to be able to just do my own thing when I feel like it. And that's how I run my print business till this day. I've operated this way before I got on YouTube. I've always said, if that job ain't for me, it ain't for me. And I understand that because I've done a ton of shitty jobs that ain't worth it. And I know what it's like to take on those jobs. And I'm trying to save you guys the headache. And I'm trying to save you guys wasting time and wasting money taking in jobs that you might feel like you need to take in. But at the end of the day, those jobs ain't even worth it, man. It's understanding what your capacity is. It's understanding what your time is worth. It's understanding what you can deliver on. That's where you say, yeah, I could take this job in. Yeah, this job's for me. Or no, that job is not for me. I'm politely, respectfully turning down this job because it doesn't fit with what I can do and what my capacity in my workspace is. And a lot of times people will ask for opinions like, well, why not? Well, what can you do? And that's when you could tell them, I'm not going to do your job because your artwork looks like this, or you're undecided on your quantity. I need to know right here, right now, and I need you to pay half up front so that way we can lock this in and I could get it done for you. A lot of people are scared to do that because they don't want the work to walk away from them. But there are thousands, if not millions, of customers out there looking for their t-shirts to be printed by somebody. It's up to you to go find those people, and it's up to you to build up that client list of customers that you love working with and you don't mind bending over backwards for because they appreciate what you do. It's just not a money grab for them. They're not looking for the cheapest person. They're looking for somebody that can actually take their ideas, put it onto a t-shirt, and they don't have to think twice about it. Remember, it's headacheless work. That's what you want to sell your service as, man. And like I said, that ain't even a real word, but if it's not a real word, we just made it a real word. You want to take the headache away from your clients so that way they come back to you and they work with you and they, big up your service. You want them to go around and tell their friends and family about your service and their experience with you, because that's how you're going to get more work. That's how you get return customers, is by building those relationships with those people, and you're adding value to those people by taking the headache away from them, all right? Hopefully this video spoke to somebody. You know what I mean? Every time that I make these podcast style videos, I'm rambling and I'm talking about past experiences and stuff like that. But at the same exact time, I want people to take this information and actually use it for their actual business. You know what I mean? Because these are some of my mistakes that I made coming up, and this is how I fix some of those mistakes. And a lot of times people, like myself, like I learn from other people's mistakes. Somebody says, they wasted money doing this. I'm gonna be like, hey, I ain't trying to waste that money either. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna listen to what that person's saying. You don't have to operate like me. I don't know everything in this print business. I didn't go to school for this stuff. I just kind of learned it on the fly on my own. And these are just the things that I've learned along my journey. And I want to share it with the people out there. So I'm hoping that this video spoke to somebody that's either in this situation or help that person avoid this situation. But don't sell yourself short. You know what I mean? I don't even know if I said that right, but don't sell yourself short, because it's not worth it, man. It's 1000% not worth it. Everybody has value for their time. Everybody values their time differently, but everybody's time is valuable. And I want you guys to understand that your time is very valuable. There's people that depend on you. There's people that are willing to pay any amount of money for your time. And that's your family, and that's your friends, and that's the people that love you the most, are the ones that are yearning for your time, man. They want your time. And you have to think, all right, is printing these t-shirts worth me not hanging out with my kids or hanging out with my wife or my husband or whatever it is, grandkids? It doesn't matter. You have to understand what your time is valued at and what your time is worth to you. And don't sell yourself short, and stay away from, the shitty customers, man, because they're all out there. There's a ton of them, man. And, it's up to you to navigate how you want to, but for me, it's turning away work, not taking on any of those jobs that are going to be a pain in my ass. All right. If you wanted to, follow me on Instagram, Big Brandoh TV. That's where I share a lot of what I'm doing in the shop. That's where a lot of the videos of me pressing are, and that's where, you can find, a ton of other stuff that I'm doing. If not, if you got questions, leave it in the comments for me. It's always better to ask it in the comments because I see it faster and I answer it faster than sending me an email or a DM or anything like that. The comments on YouTube, the comments on Instagram is where I see all of your questions the fastest, and you'll get the quicker response that way. All right. Hopefully that helps you guys, man. Catch you guys on the next one, man. Peace.